Hearing the name Joe Rogan, the first thing that might come to your mind is his longtime passion and work as a commentator for the UFC. However, the man has also managed to succeed in the world of comedy, hosting, and as a podcaster too. But did you know that he was a great practitioner of combat sports? Today, let's talk about the humiliating experience that prompted Rogan to take up MMA, starting with the humiliating experience that changed his life. Joe Rogan is well known among MMA fans for his tenure as the UFC's color commentator. Rogan made his MMA debut in 2002, and since then, he's become a TV presenter, a stand-up comedian, and a podcaster with an average audience of over 10 million. It's possible that some people still don't know that Joe Rogan is also a skilled martial artist. Rogan started training in Taekwondo at an early age and went on to fight professionally in addition to competing in a state championship. In addition, he earned a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from Eddie Bravo's 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. During an interview with Hollywood film producer Jon Peters for the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan revealed the incident more than 4 decades ago that first sparked his interest in martial arts. He said that he was eliminated from the previous one he participated in. "The guy didn't even try to harm me. When they were in school together, he put Joe in a headlock." Joe said that in all honesty, he had no idea they were going to fight. Let's talk about what exactly happened. He said, "I was thinking, why is he staring at me like that? Like he got in my face, grabbed me in a headlock, and threw me to the ground. And he got on top of me in the bathroom of the boys' room. And he went that like he was going to punch me. Then he laughs, and he was like, nah, I don't even have to. And he lets me up, and it was humiliating. It was humiliating. Yikes. That does sound a tad too embarrassing. We can't even imagine Joe in a position that would be so vulnerable. After all, the man has shaped himself like jack of all trades now." Moving on, Rogan said that was the moment that he learned something. Joe Rogan learned early on that he needed to learn self-defense after a humiliating incident. Rogan started off with Taekwondo classes, but eventually expanded his horizons. In addition to taking up wrestling, he started studying Jiu-Jitsu. "It's like, oh my gosh, I must learn how to wrestle," Rogan remarked. "Then I decided to try out for the wrestling team." Rogan, who is now 55 years old, is a UFC color commentator and hosts a massively popular podcast which members of the mixed martial arts MMA community are frequent guests because of his extensive expertise and experience in the world of combat sports. Wow, from what he said so far, it looks like the famous Joe Rogan, who often critiques others, was also at a point in his life where he was the victim of embarrassment and humiliation. Anyway, maybe the lesson here for the rest of us should be that we identify our weaknesses and work on them just as Joe did. Not to forget, he revealed another tidbit of info. Rogan, a commentator for the UFC, has had a lot of luck betting on bouts, which is likely due to his extensive understanding of MMA. Rogan, a longtime member of the UFC commentary crew, said on a recent edition of his podcast that he used to gamble on bouts even while he was reporting the events. We don't know whether UFC authorities disapproved of this, but Rogan doesn't seem to have been betting much lately. However, Rogan had a very high rate of success when he did wager in the past, either on his own or with a business partner. Rogan claims he has an 84% victory record in choosing bouts and making money. It's insane, since most people who would settle for a 50-50 split was betting on something as risky as MMA. He revealed that he was a gambler throughout his time as a UFC commentator. At an early age, he placed a wager on it. Surely, he told himself, this is against the law. A business associate of his would accompany him to the bouts, and they would both engage in gambling. Joe would just say bet after he was done gaming. Their success percentage was around 84%. The whole thing was really insane. If this is the case, Rogan should build a college dedicated to sports betting. It's not simple to select victors each Saturday, and we say that as someone who's watched UFC fights for years. Rogan may have more of a leg up than most people, but this is just nonsense. Moving on to other news. First up, Joe Rogan said he'll leave UFC when Dana White does. Joe Rogan enjoys working as a member of the UFC commentary crew and has given no indication that he intends to leave the organization anytime soon. On a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan told film producer Jon Peters, "I'm a professional fan." For Rogan's sake, that's great. A surprise provision in his contract that might lead to his resignation from the organization was then disclosed. Rogan said, "If Dana White leaves, I'm gone. That's in my contract." Joe, now 55 years old, began his career as a commentator for the Ultimate Fighting Championship, UFC, before he became a global podcasting and comedy phenomenon. Since landing a backstage interview assignment for UFC 12 Judgment Day in 1997, before Dana White was president of the business, he's worked in various roles for the promotion. It's been 25 years, and he's still one of the company's most loyal workers. Both his function and his level of dedication have evolved with time. He used to cover and comment on all events from backstage, but now he only does it for domestic domestic pay-per-views. His podcast, which debuted in 2009, is the most successful of its kind. Rogan has an exclusive 2020 agreement for $100 million or more with the streaming service Spotify, where the album is presently #1. Up next, Charles reacts to Joe being forced into a wall. It's common knowledge that UFC's backstage shenanigans are just as exciting as the fights themselves. They provide light on the dynamics between combatants, trainers, veterans, and even commentators in certain instances. In the history of mixed martial arts, backstage has seen a lot of fights, both friendly and not. In 2016, a similar event occurred backstage at UFC 203. Joe Rogan, a UFC commentator, and Mark Coleman, the UFC heavyweight champion, were caught on camera engaging in some light wrestling, and the resulting video quickly went viral on the internet. UFC fighter Charles Oliveira responded to the footage that went viral on Twitter. Mark, the Hammer Coleman, is among the few individuals who have won the Ultimate Fighting Championship. He became the first heavyweight champion after winning UFC 10 and UFC 11. The Twitter account Dovisimu MMA tweeted a video of a fight between Joe Rogan and Mark Coleman. Mark Coleman nearly kills Joe Rogan, as the piece was titled. Backstage at UFC 203, the two are seen in the video beginning a fight in good fun. To everyone's relief, Rogan was able to preserve his sense of humor while attempting to keep up with the UFC champion. Rogan may have fallen and banged his head on the wall, but he's up on his feet in no time, laughing as if nothing had happened. Carayo, Charles de Bronx's Oliveira, said in response to the post. All of those were taken aback by the force of the push. It wasn't only the fans of mixed martial arts who were shocked, champions like Charles Oliveira were as well. Finally, Rogan talks about cocaine. Joe Rogan has never been reluctant to talk about the substances he uses sometimes. The stand-up comedian has a long history with psychedelics and is an outspoken supporter of cannabis. On a recent edition of his podcast, though, Joe Rogan revealed that cocaine is one substance he has never tried. Jan Wenner, the co-founder of Rolling Stone magazine, joined him, and the two of them spoke about how easy it is now to get into cocaine addiction and how it may ruin a person's life. The UFC analyst used a personal anecdote from his youth to warn his listeners about the perils of cocaine. In high school, he had a close buddy whose relatives sold coke, he added, and Joe saw his condition swiftly worsen. The man was selling coke and doing it daily. He and his girlfriend hid out in an apartment designed for addicts. Joe paid him a visit once, and he compared knowing him before and after his coke to knowing someone who had been bitten by a vampire. Yikes, that sounds horrible. Hopefully, the younger generation looking up to Joe would learn a thing or two from this story. That's a wrap for this video. So what did you think of Joe's confession about the humiliating experience? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.